Wesley Clark, who served as NATO Supreme Allied Commander and a former candidate for the Democratic Party's nomination for president. He's also author of Don't Wait for the Next War, a strategy for American growth and global leadership. And wait until you hear what he had to say on this. General, great to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
When General Keane says that radical Islam is the enemy, do you agree?
Well, I agree with a lot of what Jack Keane says. He's an old friend of mine, and he's a very smart and experienced leader. Now, I think we do have a real threat from extremist interpretations of Islam that are reflected by groups like ISIS. But it's also true that there's a tremendous geostrategic struggle going on in the Middle East right now.
Okay, but before we get to that, because I just want to start with the question of, because we heard this from General Flynn, who ran the DIA. I mean, this is a big agency. This is the brother to the CIA. He ran the agency. He recently retired over the summer and slammed the administration for not using the term Islamic militants. And he said, we cannot defeat an enemy that you do not admit exists. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. But I think it's not just radical Islam, because radical Islam is used. We, the United States, used radical Islam to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. We begged the Saudis to put the money in. They did.
But that's
Megan, this is all part of this.
What these guys seem to be saying is we have an administration now that won't even call it what it is. Out of political correctness, out of fear of offending somebody, Keane believes out of just fear about what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that we cannot be controlled by fear right now in facing this enemy.
Well, of course we can't be controlled by fear, but you're not going to deal effectively with this threat unless you understand what the source of it is. It's not just the zealousness of radical Islam. It's fed and fueled by the geostrategic ambitions of powers in the region.
But
they're reaching out.
What he was trying to say, because our viewers watch this segment, we got a lot of feedback on it. What General Keane was trying to say is that the policy that he says has failed, that these other generals say has failed, is retreat, disengagement. And he went through the examples. Let's just go through it quickly. Did we miss an opportunity in Syria, or didn't we?
We could have done a lot more with the moderate Syrians than we did.
Did we miss an opportunity in Libya, or did we not?
You know, the trouble in Libya was we had partial opposition, but it wasn't a strong and unified opposition.
Should we have supported them when they asked for support of a moderate security force? We did? So General Keane is wrong on that.
That's right. We did support them.
Should we have left any residual force in Iraq? Should we have left anybody there to maintain the gains our troops had won?
I would like to have kept a residual force in Iraq if we had the right status of forces agreement. But what you have to understand about this criticism is that it was Iran behind the scenes with the Maliki regime, which no matter what the United States had done with the negotiations, Iran was going to find a way to wedge us out.
Why make it easy for them? Here's the question. So, why won't the administration refer to it as radical Islam?
You're going to have to ask a spokesman for the administration.
Are they wrong not to?
Well, you're going to have to ask
But
them.
I'm asking you, are they wrong not
radical
to?
Islam, but
why? Are they being too politically correct? Because it irritates people when they see that. 6 out of 10 Americans know where.
I want them to understand.
No, General Clark.
This is
6
not
out of 10
about
Americans
religion.
know.
This is about
yes, it is about religion. It's about perverted religious ideology.
It isn't.
Yes, it is. Don't tell me this has nothing to do with Islam. It does.
It's being. Yes, of course. But let me explain what people in the region will tell you. If you ask them, say, what's going on with ISIS? You know what they'll tell you? They'll say very candidly, the only people that will fight the Iranians and the Shia and Hezbollah are these zealous religious nuts. And all the Sunni powers were using them. They created a Frankenstein in the region.
What should the United States be doing? Because their problem is now our problem.
Got to put special forces in. You've got to use local forces on the ground. You've got to use U.S. air power. You've got to contain it. You've got to work with allies in the region.
Do you believe, as General Keane and the others suggested, this is the communism, this is the Nazism of our time?
I know that there's a threat from this religious interpretation, this extremist interpretation of Islam. Yeah. Is it the communism of our time? Not unless it's backed by states. But what I'm trying to explain is that states have created this, and there are allies.
So what's the answer then?
Well, you've got to have a broad approach to this. It's military, it's diplomatic, it's economic, it's ideological, and you've got to get the Sunni Islamic states themselves, like Saudi Arabia, to speak out forcefully against ISIS and against their interpretation of it.
Great to see you.
Thank you.